Right now, especially in a large enterprise, most of the IT department budget, like 70% of it, and in some cases there's estimates as much as 85% of it, goes to maintaining what you've already got in the infrastructure. And that little bit that's left over is what you can use to innovate and try to make your IT shop a competitive weapon and do cool things for your customers. We've got a network out here, and generally speaking, we have a console to manage the network. This might be for your Cisco switches or your routers or whatever the case may be. And then we hang, servers and clients off of these things. Guess what? Typically, this translates to, in some cases, one more console, and in some cases, two. So you've got a console here for. Let's give the benefit of the doubt, and we'll say that it manages both clients and servers. Okay. And we've got storage devices, and we've probably got a console here, for the storage. If you're doing storage resource management, then the likelihood is high you have yet another console out here, to do your storage resource management. And what happens is we have just proliferated tool after tool after tool into the IT environment. So it's not just all of the stuff that's out there and the different vendors and all that, but it's the software to manage it. In fact, we've gotten to the point now where if you consider the agents, the communications vehicle inside all of the boxes, to make them talk to their consoles, you've got tons of extra software to manage just in the management software. And in some cases, we put multiple agents on these guys. So let's say that above all of this, you now want to add a software distribution and patching tool, SMS, something like that. Okay, so now you've got yet another set of agents and certain devices down here that participate in that particular infrastructure. And you might think, okay, well then we're done. But actually, because of this sprawl in system management consoles and agents, people have for years done the big framework thing, right? So we use an OpenView or a BMC or a CA or I'm forgetting somebody, a Tivoli Enterprise Console, and that actually can proliferate yet another set of agents to be able to monitor all of that stuff. And you might look at this and say, that seems a little harsh, but in fact, this is a very simple drawing. I had one of my big financial customers paint me a diagram of their infrastructure. And when you add multiple hardware suppliers, both on the network side, on the storage side, on the client and server side, because we're trying to keep competitive, make the vendors bid for your business. In fact, it can be 10 times this bad. They had a block of tools for managing the environment and the security that had 50 different names in it. And it's not getting any simpler. It's actually getting a lot more complicated. So now I'm going to take this server and I'm going to break it up into virtual machines so that I can consolidate and maybe not have to invest so much in infrastructure or get down to fewer data centers. And that adds a virtual machine manager in all likelihood from VMware these days. So power, the data center, especially those of you who maybe come from the East Coast or any major city where the power distribution grids are starting to be a little tapped out and some of the power companies are actually restricting the amount of power that you can get into a data center. Now we want to manage power, so we've got these facilities management consoles now that control power and cooling. It just gets multiplied and multiplied, and in essence, this is a problem that Dell's been in the IT simplification gig for probably since its inception. In the old days, what it meant was we build PCs and servers on industry standard hardware so that the piece parts kind of plug and play, kept your costs down, the number of people and the number of replacement parts that you needed to have around the shop, kind of low, and that was the method of IT simplification. But we're going into this whole new era now at Dell where, from my perspective, we're going to focus in really, really hard on systems management. And what can we do to simplify IT from a system management perspective. The first thing that we're looking at is how do we just reduce the number of consoles that you need to manage the environment. And we sort of started with our own tools. Pretty much everybody in the industry has two tools to support that function. You've either got a CD-based tool that has a graphic user interface that allows you to interact with it and set up that initial server, or you might have one that's a bag of utilities that allows you to build that bare metal deployment into a scripted install that you've already got in your environment. We call those the Dell Server Assistant and the Deployment Toolkit. And then there's a separate tool that you use if you get into a situation where you want to update the BIOS, the drivers, the firmware later on. We've consolidated all three of those individual tools into one. We call it the System Build and Update Utility. And this thing has one user interface now that will allow you to choose from a menu. Do you want to do a graphically guided bare metal install of a single device? Or do you want to use that graphic interface to build a script that you can then use to cookie cutter a bunch of server installs? Or do you want to update the BIOS and drivers and firmware? And we've gone one step further with that. We've actually taken the content off of the CD. To jam all that stuff into one, even in a DVD, that's a ton of content. All the drivers that you need to have support all your models of servers, and some guys have to swap CDs in and out of the tray to do that. We now have a content manager that actually downloads all the stuff from support.dell.com and puts it on a local store inside your firewall just to share. And now you actually build the content for the tools on the fly. When you get on this graphic user interface, it decides what content you need on the fly and then helps you do the install or the update or whatever it is you're trying to do. You can save those script files off to that shared drive and then point other servers in the environment at it and do things like announced about a year ago that we entered into a little deeper partnership with Altiris. Altiris has a framework, not unlike other management frameworks. And fundamentally, the framework has got, a bag of services and a management database and protocol layers, and this is, where the agent, interacts with the end user devices. The protocol to do that is out here. We're actually going to go we're in the process of building our next generation hardware management console, our one-to-many console for deploying and monitoring and updating. We're going to build that right on top of this framework. We call it the Dell Management Console. And when we finish that next year, we will actually have not only the hardware management in that console, but immediate access to all of the other solutions that Altiris offers today. But we still have the problem of the guys who made the investment in a big framework, or the 60+% of our customers who use SMS to do their patching, or a Microsoft Operations Manager to do their monitoring.